Hey guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, and this is a My Story spin-off as you join us for conversations with former Welsh boxer and Welsh boxing coach, Mr. Gary Lockett. How are you, mate?
Very well, thank you. When was the last time? Was it about 8 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think so.
Something around there, wasn't it?
About 6 or 7, I think. But it was,
we just run out of time and just barely got started before I had to shoot off.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? Just as you're getting going, it can just we run out of time. But I was eager to get you back in, as soon as we were both able to, and looking forward to having a good old chat. But to sort of start us off before we kind of go a bit down memory lane with you, I had James Lilly in you 2 weeks ago, who's obviously done MMA, boxing, and is now doing
jack of all trades.
Yeah, he's doing very well in the bare knuckle boxing now. But one thing he touched upon was the lack of any communication between like MMA and the boxing boards within the UK, and he said he felt that it would be beneficial, particularly for the kind of lower level fighters. So for in his case, when he turned professional boxer, he struggled to get fights. Obviously, this is going back as well, I think 19 years, he said. So he was struggling to get fights, and he would travel up to, I think, Liverpool and some other places to get fights. But he was struggling to get fights, and then he took an MMA fight because he had been training with John Phillips up in Swansea. And then when he was about to have a boxing fight, I think the officials saw a poster of him, and they sort of said, if you had an MMA fight. But his point was, there's nothing really to stop someone going and doing an MMA fight, getting knocked out, and then 2 weeks later doing a boxing fight if people don't know, because there's no communication or there's no overseeing board type thing, I suppose. Like, do you think that could be problematic in some ways if there's no communication between the two sports on a kind of lower level thing?
I think that's the very reason why the British Boxing Board of Control won't allow, or they don't want to see or hear of anybody doing any MMA or K1 or anything else like that, specifically because of what you just said. How are the board to know if someone's doing say MMA as well as boxing, that they haven't been knocked out? Because a lot of these MMA bills they go under the radar, don't they? And not everything is really on record. So how do they know that? They've always acted, the British Boxing Board of Control has got its critics, but one thing you can say is that they're the most safety conscious board of control in world boxing. It can be a pain in the ass sometimes. When you've got fighters who've had medicals and you've got them penciled in for a date on a certain time, and the board of control are just dragging their heels, not putting them through and not signing them off it's just a major nightmare. But one thing we can't criticise them for is that they do have the boxers' health and safety in mind, and that's obviously paramount, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely, it's got to be the most important thing. And obviously, as soon as they found out that he'd had that MMA fight, they banned him, I think, completely. And then I think there was a chance, I think at one point he said he was going to go back, or he had the opportunity to get his license back, and then he got offered the bare knuckle boxing. I think that was more down his street. What's your view on the bare knuckle boxing? Obviously, he's getting a bit of a slightly bigger name for himself now. Obviously, you're a boxing coach. I know you coach some of the MMA guys with like striking and stuff. But what's your view on bare knuckle boxing as traditional boxing?
Next question.
No. Okay. Speaks for itself, I suppose, doesn't it? So, on the issue of the safety thing, which you said about the boxing board of control, I don't know if you saw the thing from South Africa. Over the last, I think it was the weekend before last.
A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, had a very sad outcome with the gentleman dying, but that was one of the most bizarre and quite scary things that I've seen over the years, because, I'm interested in kind of your take on it, because when the guest we had on the Sunday, when it sort of broke, said that he thought it was maybe a case of a delayed reaction to getting hit, whereas Ben said he thought it was more likely continued blows to the head over the fight and obviously in his previous thing. Do you think it's one of them things where could have been a problem beforehand, or?
Well, I mean, I'm not a brain surgeon,
No,
so I mean, I don't know the specifics, but obviously he had a blood clot on the brain, and you know, wherever in the brain that would be, there's obviously different areas of your brain which affect different parts of the body. So, you know, it was bizarre, wasn't it? You know, he's just walked to the corner and started shadow boxing, and really, really sad to watch. Again, I don't know the specifics of what happened beforehand. You know, was he suffering headaches and different things beforehand? I don't know if anything like that has come out, but it was really, really sad. And every time something like this happens, you know, it shocks the world of boxing, doesn't it? And it doesn't happen in MMA. You know, it doesn't happen in MMA, and it's just very, very strange. But the thing that I'm constantly told is that it's more, a finish in MMA is more sudden, isn't it? It's one punch or one big strike, the guy goes to ground, okay, the other guy might jump on him and hammer fist him once or twice or what have you, but in general terms, I think in MMA, the fights do tend to be more, the finishes do tend to be more sudden, don't they? Yeah. Whereas with boxing, I think it's
like a culmination.
Yeah, there's damage every round, isn't there? And it's slow damage sometimes, and that's what we talk about. You know, you need to break this guy down. That's exactly what it means, isn't it? Break him up bit by bit and damage him over the course of so many rounds. So it's something, unfortunately, that we're never going to come to an end of this. You know, it's always going to happen, and it's always going to happen because boxing is a weight-making sport. I think a lot of the time it can be it can happen to the brain because of the way that a person is made weight, which is why I constantly tell my boys never to go too far over, because I've done it all myself. You know, I wasn't too bad, but I used to be two stone over, but I know guys who were like 3-4 stone over, and they're bringing their weight down to make weight every fight. So that can't be good. Number one, it can't be good for your kidneys and your liver and your general organs, and it certainly can't be good for your brain, because obviously around the brain you've got that sort of area of cushion, and if you are really, really struggling with your weight, apparently you take the water away from that cushion that protects your brain. So yeah, it's very, very sad, isn't it? And you know, I wouldn't really know the specifics, as I say, but even for myself, you know, I've been involved in 2 fights where there've been kids with brain injuries. It was shocking to watch.
Yeah, it was, like, I found it quite upsetting as well on the Sunday morning when the clip kind of went viral and stuff, because I saw a lot of perceived boxing people, not people from within the sport in terms of, you know, like yourself and media members and stuff like that, but like people who are, you know, hardcore boxing fans, who, you know, they're talking about it every weekend, they're watching it, kind of like laughing at it and making fun of it. Obviously before...
They're not fans though, are they? Let's be fair.
But to me, like, you could, even before it came out, you know, it came out I think a few hours later that he was, you know, in a coma, and then obviously a couple of days later he had passed away. But to me, like, as soon as you see that video, you know something's wrong.
Yeah.
Because, like, bear in mind as well, like, he had just knocked the other guy out of the ring.
That's right.
And he was winning the fight.
Yeah.
So it's not like, you know, he had just taken, like you said with the MMA, like a big shot or something like that. It's just one of them, which makes it even, in some ways, even more
bizarre.
Worrying and bizarre. Yeah. And I didn't like it, and I got quite frustrated with it, because there was a few people in there who I sort of know, and I was like, what are you doing? I was really kind of, I don't know what the, yeah, I think that's the words, which, you know, it's not for me to pass judgment on other people, but I was disappointed to see it, I've got to say. Yeah, you know, you mentioned the weight cutting. I've had a conversation the last couple of weeks about weight cutting. Well, with the MMA, you've got Paddy Pimblett, obviously is doing very well for himself, making a great name for himself, making a lot of money, but he's also, in between fights, ballooning up like massively, and we've seen it with Ricky Hatton did it, and and obviously other fighters over the years in both sports. How can we, not so much with those fighters who sort of balloon up between fights, but what do you think is the safest way to do like weigh-ins and the weight cut? Is it just to do it gradually? And like, 'cause I see a few people saying that same day weigh-ins is the way to go.
No, same day weigh-ins. If people are doing it properly, yes, but we know how many cheats there are in the game, and I know full well what a cheat is because I was one. Okay. So the way that I used to do weight was incredible. You know how I did what I did, incredible, and that's not necessarily down to a lack of discipline. It's down to a lack of knowledge, because don't forget, you know, we're in 2022 now. You could basically go on the web and you could get an explanation how you can lose weight gradually. Mm-hmm. Let's say when I really started to make waves, 2001, wasn't there information about then? I mean, the internet was very new then, yeah. And nobody really understood it. I think it was only when maybe 2003, 2004, 2005 when it really started to pick up. So, I mean, it was just a lack of knowledge, and I think back then most people did it the same. It was just basically, you know, eat as little as you can, and don't drink any water. You only really drink any water when you're dying of thirst, yeah. And you train your weight off. That we know now to be complete lunacy. Yeah. You know, you training weight off. I mean, okay, you burn calories when you train, but if you put massive amount of calories into your body, then just training them off is just not doable. But you know, it was just different back then. Everything's so much more advanced now, and I think that's the reason why there shouldn't be these things anymore. You know, boxers shouldn't be struggling. Everyone's going to struggle to make weight, don't get me wrong, because I think if you're not struggling, then you should really be the weight lighter. You're going to struggle in the last day or so. But what I'm really saying is there's no real excuse now for guys to be doing things wrong, because there's just so much knowledge out there. And you know, the weight making thing when it comes to brain injuries, I think is a big part of it as well.
I can't remember if it was you who I talked about this with before, or if it was someone else. I forget who it was, but someone said about so basically when a fight's announced and you have like a 8-week training camp or whatever, is to measure the weight throughout the camp.
Yeah, I mean,
to see it gradually, like to see you have certain thresholds as you're getting closer.
So that, you know, that's not a bad idea at all. But it doesn't always work like that, and the person that would have said that knows this as well. You know? Yeah. So you might go, I'm going to lose 3 pound a week. But obviously, when you start to get closer to your weight, it might slow down a little bit. Some weeks you might lose more, and then you might put on a pound the next week. So it doesn't always work like that. But that's not a bad idea. You've got to be looking at it and saying, I'm 8 weeks out. If I can lose X amount of weight, I'm going to be here or I'm going to be there. But the answer I always say to the boys is, in the first place, don't go too far over. I mean, Kieran Jones, for instance, he's a big middleweight. Mm. He's never heavier than 12.5. The lightest he's made so far is 11.9. But you know with Kieran, he's a specimen, he's a professional. You know that when he makes it, he's going to make it properly and be good. So yeah, I think it might be less than that. I think 12.4 maybe. He never goes heavier than that. So I think that's key in the first place. But of course, I don't think everyone is built like Kieran. And I think most people, I can remember someone said to Liam Williams, you shouldn't let your weight go so heavy. He said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, you should never let it go more than £10 over. He went £10. Mm. He said, I'm £12 heavier than my weight 45 minutes after a fight. And the guy went, well, he said, water, it's hydration. As soon as I drink 4 litres of water, he said, how heavy do you think that weighs? No, 2 litres of water, I forget now, but it's probably £4, near £4 or £3. I can't remember exactly what it is now, but 4 litres, 6 litres of water weighs a lot of weight. So that alone you know, you go and sort of 12 pound a stone over even then. But as I say, some people like your Kierans. And there used to be a guy called Michael Ayers back just a little bit before me. He was like an IBO champion, good fighter. Michael Ayers was an ABA champion in the amateurs as well. Showing my age now. He always said the secret why he went on so long. I think he went on till he was about 35, and he was very, very good at the age 35 as well. And he always said that the reason for his longevity really was because he never really let his weight go too heavy. He was never more than about 8 pound over. So it's a good point, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you be 8 pound over, that's just a weight off your mind. You don't really
Never
need
have to worry
make
about it,
weight.
do you?
But when you got these kids going 2-3 stone over,
It's a big ask, isn't it?
massive ask.
Alongside training as well.
Well, what happens then is when you're so far overweight, and they say you got an 8-week camp. That always makes me laugh. Camp, I don't know, because my boys are always training. There is no camp. It's just they're always training. They're always in a decent position. So if a fight comes up, give us a week or two, and I can be ready. I can be ready with them. So the camp, I know obviously what people mean when they say camp. So if you've got an 8-week camp, they're basically not training for technique or to work on technique, or to work on learning different things and working in different groups and stuff like that, because that's what I do with my boys. I put them into different groups and work lots of technique and what have you. They can't train like that. They're just training to lose weight. That's all they're training. That's all they, every time, weighing before, weighing after, weighing in the night, weighing 20 times a day. I spoke to Cordina about this in the lead up to his fight as well. But you know, the weight is a massive issue with boxers. I mean, I go as far as to say weight beats more young, talented boxers than any opponent will.
Just,
doing the weight all wrong.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? But like, the other thing I think, as well, I do think, like, I probably speak to more MMA guys than I do boxers. For some reason, I find boxers a lot harder to pin down. But in terms of just like weight management, I find a lot more fighters in the last, probably since COVID, I would say more fighters that I speak to, they seem more professional. They don't seem to be like big drinkers and, you know, eat a lot of junk food. Like I had Lloyd Jermaine in here the other day, and towards the end of the show, it was like the week before his Welsh title fight, and I said, you know, what's your kind of favourite junk food? And he was like, oh, I don't really like junk food. Like, you know, he prefers to eat clean and stuff like this. And I suppose if you've got that lifestyle as a young fighter or a young athlete, it's easier to watch your weight then, isn't it? Whereas opposed to, you know, if you enjoy a drink in between fights and like
that's a good attitude from Lloyd there. I remember being in the Welsh Boxing Awards a few years ago, and didn't have a fight coming up, but he was just drinking. I said, oh, do you have a drink? He went, to be honest, he said, I'm just trying to give myself the best chance I can to make, you know, to make things happen as a pro for myself. And I thought, you know, that's a good attitude, and exactly the same way you say there, trying to be clean all the time. He always looks in shape, doesn't he? So good on him. Yeah.
And I think and that's not to, and look, I'm not, you know, criticising fighters which want to have a beer or stuff after their fight and enjoy it, because, you know, we all want to celebrate your successes. Otherwise, what are you working for? But equally, like, I think it gives yourself a better or an easier chance with terms of weight cutting if you're looking after yourself in between when you haven't got a fight.
It's a short career.
Of course, yeah.
So in that short career, you know, you have to give yourself the best chance. The most annoying thing is when they've got the talent, but they just haven't got that attitude or that work ethic to go with it. I mean, I've had a couple in my time. I mean, I mentioned the weight thing earlier. You know, I had a kid called Lewis Reese who was on the GB squad. Lewis really could have done anything he wanted to do, but he just couldn't stop eating crap. And he won 9 straight. It was when Enzo boxed Jürgen Bremer over in Germany. He was on the undercard, and he boxed a guy who's become well known since, a guy called Ronald Garrido, because Garrido always gives someone a tough fight. He beat Bradley Saunders years ago, who was an Olympian, And anyway, Lewis, I thought he won the fight on the last round, but they gave it a draw over there against Ronald Garrido. So then he had another chance then, because he was with Frank Warren. He had another chance, and they matched him with a guy called William Warburton. William Warburton is he's one of the best journeymen that we've seen. Very, very, very tough, very cagey. I think he only got stopped about 200 fights. He only got stopped 3 times, I think.
Oh.
And he was one of these where he'd have a look, and if he saw any weakness, he'd jump on you. And so it's like I always said, William Warburton will always beat the pretenders and the cheats. That night, I can remember saying to Jason McClory, who was a matchmaker for Frank Warren at the time, mate of mine. So it was Lewis Scott. He said, William Warburton, he said, on the day weigh-in. And I knew then, because if he'd have said William Warburton day before weigh-in, I'd have gone, yeah, great. Because Lewis, the way he did weight, he was a cheat. So he'd just pick out and just eat everything he wanted to eat, and then he'd just crash the weight off at the end. If he could have weighed in the day before, he's got 30 hours to recover. Yeah. But by it being on the day weigh-in, he would have had to starve himself all day. I think he was in a hot bath in the morning, he told me after. So he weighed in 10 stone 12, which was, Lewis should have been a super lightweight, really. And I can remember in the first round, so I was on pins thinking he's got to tire out or whatever. And he boxed well in the first round. I thought, well, he might just get away with this, yeah. And then from the start of the second round, Warburton just jumped on him. And he must have seen something that we didn't. He must have felt how weak he was, and he won every round then, Warburton. And he won the fight. I think it was 58-57, but no, he won it 5 rounds to 1, to be honest. And that was the end of Lewis, and Lewis never boxed again. He put a load of weight on now, mind Lewis, and I believe he's really happy now. He's doing really well. He used to work for a mate of mine, so it just wasn't to be.
Yeah.
It wasn't to be, but if he'd have dedicated himself, I know we say this about a lot of guys, I think, Lewis at the very least would have been a British champion, so...
Is there, like, as you look back, since you've been a coach, is there guys who've kind of come and gone and you've thought, oh, if you just... stuck out here, or is there like ones which really stick out? Because I know Danny will say to me quite often when we're sort of chatting on the show, he says some of the people who he's got in his gym, some of the most talented ones are the ones who are just doing it for a hobby and have got no interest in doing it as a serious thing.
You got a guy with a lot of talent, and they've got that work ethic and that desire, that attitude. It's a ready-made champion. They're not gonna not do well. Unfortunately, the most talented guys just haven't got. It's not coupled up with that hard work ethic. And you look at most champions. You look at all sports. Most of the people, the vast majority of the people, are not talented people. They're hard workers. Because if it was a case where most of them are talented, they'd all be elite. Like in boxing, there's only so many elite guys. They are the guys that have got the talent and the hard work. You're not going to get someone who's talented but haven't got hard work ever be a world champion, because at some point when you go above the 4 and 6 round level, maybe the 8 round level, you might get away with it. But sooner or later you're going to have to fight someone. And if you go into the later rounds and you've been cheating on the weight, you've been cheating on your diet, you haven't been as dedicated as you should, that person who isn't good enough really talent-wise to lace your boots, but they're a lot harder working than you. They're in bed at 10 o'clock at night, they're up at 6 o'clock in the morning running, they're getting their training done, they're getting the nutrients, they're getting all their diet right. That person will come along and beat you. I've had that in many times as a coach. So it's the most annoying thing to see, but it's always going to happen, and that's not just in boxing. That's in all sports, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I look back to my own teenage years. Like when I was 15, 16, I was in the South Wales School of the FA side, School of Excellence, and all this. I had the opportunities. When I look back now, that opportunity where if I had the right attitude, I could have gone and done something because it was very good, but I didn't have it. At that age, I just didn't have that work ethic and that the attitude to go and be a professional.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I think it's just having the maturity to understand what you've got. And I think a lot of the time, just touch on my daughter, for instance, you know, 'cause she started athletics about 2 months ago. She's really good. You know, she's straight away, her long jump is just brilliant. And I said, you're doing really well at your long jump now. You've got to start getting a little bit more height, because I did a bit of athletics when I was a kid. I was a good sprinter. She's starting to be a good sprinter now, but she's not attacking the sprint, she's going through the motions. But she's only young, she's only 10. And I said, you're going to be really good at this long jump. And she said, oh, but Dad, I'm a trampolinist. That's her first love. She loves trampoline and she loves gymnastics, but she just sees this as a hobby. So I think when someone has that talent and they're not really that bothered about it, it's one, maybe there are other reasons, but the two I put it down to is perhaps they're interested a little bit more in another sport, or perhaps they're just not, they're a little bit immature to understand what they've got and they need to apply themselves and they can do really well with it.
Well, yeah, 100%. For me, it was, I did have cricket, which I was probably better at. But for me, like, my dad died when I was 16, but he was the one who would, if I'd say to him, oh, I don't want to go today, I can't bother,
push you.
He'd say, no, come on, get in the car, shut up. And I'd go and I'd enjoy it and I'd do well. But then when he died, obviously you've got the initial period where my mum would say, oh, you know, you don't have to go if you don't want to. But then after that, and sort of initial grief period, if you like, she basically just let me decide.
Yeah.
And I was obviously grieving, but I was also more interested in girls and got hang around with my mates. And I look back at it now, and it's frustrating, but I wasn't, at that time I wasn't ready, and I didn't have the right attitude for it. So even if I had, you know, if my dad had stayed with us maybe and he'd pushed me, I think I probably would have, maybe I would have matured and grown into it, but the attitude that I had at that point, I would have got unstuck. I would have got found out by people and boys who had the same level of ability, but I had a better attitude and
yeah, of course,
the work rate. Yeah. But that's the joys of teenagers, I guess. I am kind of interested when we look at your boxing career, if you've got not so much a favourite fight or a favourite bout, but a favourite period of, you know, like a year or a couple of years where you really felt on top of the world, or like at the time maybe you were like, I love this game and
right, yeah, okay. There is a time. Never loved the game ever. You know, never loved doing it. You know, a lot of people people misunderstand what I've said. People have said, you know, Gary Lockett, you know, was hated, but I never hated boxing, but it just wasn't my first love. And a lot of the time, I didn't enjoy what I was doing. I'm a big boxing fan, obviously, you know, first and foremost, but I didn't enjoy what I was doing. But I think there was a period of time, so when I turned pro at 19 with John Hyland. Now, John Hyland he had a contract with ITV. And so I turned pro on the pretense that John Hyland had the contract with ITV. I was going to be on ITV. Now, what happened then? So I'll go back. John Hyland basically said that the only two amateurs I wanted to sign who were explosive, he said, is you and Ricky Hatton. Ricky Hatton's a little bit too young at the moment. He was 17, I was 19. He said, they're the two top ones I want to sign. So he made me an offer, and it was a good offer, and I turned pro with him on the pretense that we'd have ITV. Now, what happened then was Bernie Eccleston sued ITV. This was 1996.
Yeah.
He sued ITV. ITV pulled the plug on boxing. I was left on small hall bills. So for 7 fights, I boxed over a matter. I had a couple of injury issues. I had a couple of years out and what have you. So I was still with him. And then just bills starting to fall through. So I just thought, look, enough's enough. I'm going to try and get my contract back. And anyway, I managed to get my contract back, and I signed with Matchroom. Not Eddie Hearn Matchroom, Barry Hearn Matchroom.
Okay.
So I was with Matchroom back then, and my debut for Matchroom, I boxed a guy called David Baptiste, and boxed really well over 4 rounds. But then the next fight, then that's when everybody started sitting up and taking notice. I knocked out a guy called Hussein Osman, who had been on the road, and he'd won 7 out of 8 on the road. So he was 7-1. I was 7-0, and I can remember I was supposed to be fighting a journeyman called Howard Clark, and I had a phone call off John Wish, who's now, he works for Sky and Boxer now. And John said, "Oh, Gary, we had a change. You're now boxing Hussein Osman." And I don't know what it was. Most young kids would have gone, "Oh, well, wait a minute now, you know, that's a little..." I went, "No problem, that's fine." So my dad was like, "Look, this is too much, you know, we're not..." I said, "Dad," I said, "he will make all the mistakes that I need." I said, "I'll knock this guy out early." So my dad was on pins, and that's what happened. You know, we had a pretty even first round. I probably nicked the first round. We stood a little bit toe to toe. I was in and out with my jab, and I hit him with a big left hook and just knocked him spark out. And it was one of those knockouts that's on all the highlight reels.
Yeah.
And then the next fight, then KO after stoppage after stoppage. So people really started talking about me. And then, long story short, I wanted a little bit more money. This is going back years ago. This is going back in 2000, 2001. I wanted a little bit more money. Matchroom wasn't willing to negotiate, and then what happened is, you know, I went with Warren, and basically sort of left my contract a year early to go with Frank Warren, who offered far more money, and yeah, that was the period I really enjoyed most. My period with Matchroom. And the early period with Warren. Unfortunately, my weight issues caught up with me, so my unbeaten run came to an end when I boxed Yuri Serengo, who was, to be honest, nothing special, just a very hard, ambitious, I wouldn't call him journeyman because he always come to win, but he'd lost a few. I can remember him giving Ryan Rhodes a real difficult night, and of course I went out. I think I won the first 5 or 6 rounds, and anyway, he was very tough. I hurt both of my hands. Can't remember whether there was any fracture.
Was that during the fight or in the build-up fight?
Yeah. During the fight, yeah. And basically, I just fell away a little bit. Old cuts man in my corner called Denny Mancini, who's a legend. He's dead now, God bless his soul. I can remember my nose being full and swollen. He said, "Whatever you do not blow your nose." And the temptation.
Because you can feel it, or the temptation,
yeah,
like that. You just feel like you've got to blow it.
To blow it. I blew it, and both my eyes come up, half closed, both of them, and I ended up anyway just running out of gas and losing on a split decision. I mean, to judge the fight in rounds, I probably won the fight, but I think Ian Dark on commentary had me up by a point. So did one of the judges, but I lost on a split decision. But then, long story short, I rematched Serengo about a year later on 2 weeks' notice. I hadn't been training at all. 2 weeks' notice, supposed to be a 6-rounder. Junior Witter was supposed to be fighting someone. He dropped off as top of the bill, and then they said, "Do you want to go top of the bill?" And me being daft, I didn't even know who the opponent was. I said, "Yeah, okay," even though I wasn't ready. It was about 2.5 weeks' notice, so really only like a week and a half's training.
Yeah.
We put you with Serengo again. So I got my head around it, and then I was okay. And you know, I said to my dad, I said to my coach, Brian Hughes, who's passed away now. Brian said, "No, you're fit enough. You know, you've been doing the sparring the last week. You've been doing the sparring. If you're fit enough in the sparring, you're going to be fit enough in the fight." So, but listen, I wasn't prepared. How can anybody be prepared after a week and a half training? So my dad tried to talk me out of it, but I went in it, and I thought, right, I'll make sure I win the first 6, and I'll just hang on for dear life. But as it was, I won the first 7. I had a bit of a torrid time in the last 2 rounds, but I won it pretty comfortably in the end. So, but it wasn't my best performance. So, as obviously, you know, it was on very short notice.
Yeah, Jesus.
But I got the
job done
with revenge. And
couple of questions I got. So with the first fight, you know, when you blew your nose, do you think those judges for the split decision would they take it? I don't know how it works in boxing, particularly back then. with how they judge it? Would they take into consideration the damage?
Well,
Because obviously your face would have looked a lot more damaged than it would have.
He never had a mark on him. He was a Belarusian, so those typical guys, you'd hit them
Hard
all
guys.
day and they just don't get any blemishes, do they?
Yeah.
So you've got two guys in there. The one guy's face looked like he's been in a car crash, and the other guy looks completely like he's just had a walk in the park. So a lot of the time, who are you going to think's won the fight? But it was close. Don't get me wrong, it was very, very close. But
Yeah.
I thought I won the first 5 or 6. So I'd have had to lose every single round after that. There was no knockdowns in the fight. But, by the by, I lost the fight and I had no complaints.
And then the other thing I was going to ask you, with that second fight then, about a year later, were you still, shall we say, not cutting weight the way you should have been?
With the second fight?
Yeah.
This is the thing.
On so much later notice as well.
Do you know what? It's a strange one because we're opening up another avenue here.
Okay.
A lot of the time someone moves up in weight and they find it harder to make the weight than they found the weight below, and I think that was the case for me, because I think you just take your foot off the gas and think, right, I don't have to make 11 stone or 154 anymore. I think the match was made at like 11:10, so
Like a psychological thing that you're like, oh, I haven't got to make that weight now, so it's going to be easier.
You just take your foot off the gas. And I struggled. Yeah, I didn't struggle as much as the first time, mind, but bloody hell, I still found it hard. But no, the weight wasn't really an issue with the second fight because it was a lot heavier. But I was just glad to get that bit of revenge, even if it wasn't it wasn't a great performance. But I got
the job done on 2 weeks' notice.
Yeah, exactly.
I think whenever a fighter takes a fight on late notice as well, if they put in a good performance or they get the win, you get the credit. You get like a additional credit, I guess, is probably the way. Because
the late notice thing, though, just some people, like I said, I mentioned Kieran and a few of the boys earlier. Regardless of whether they're fighting or not, they are in that gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah.
So
if you're
if
always
a short
ready,
notice,
it's not short notice,
if a
is
short
it?
notice fight comes up for them,
It's
is it
not
really
here.
a short notice fight because they're
Yeah.
already in shape? So it's
Yeah, if you're always ready, there's never a short notice fight, is there?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is. What would you say is the lowest point of your career?
The lowest point in my career.
Yeah.
I'd say the first loss.
How's that psychologically when you've been unbeaten and you're obviously on the rise? You, like you said, people will take a notice, and then you sort of, for lack of a better term, you come back down to earth.
Yeah, it was devastating for me, I think, and sometimes I see some of these guys getting beat and they're like laughing and joking and messing about in the ring after. I mean, I can say, I lost 8 fights in the amateurs and I lost 2 in the pros, and I can honestly say that I was absolutely devastated every single time I lost. So if I lost, it was a big thing to me. So that's why I don't understand when guys get beat laughing and joking and stuff like that in the ring.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense.
But yeah, I'd say that was the lowest point of my career, is getting beat. As you can ask most fighters, and they will say the lowest point in their career has obviously been a loss.
Are you someone who dwells on that? Did you dwell on it for weeks, days, or is it sort of done after that night, or are you there for a couple of weeks stewing on it?
A few months, I suppose. But then, obviously, I had a good couple of comeback fights, and I went on to. I'd been WBO Intercontinental Champion. Had a few comeback, but it took time to get back up there. Fights falling through. Different fights falling through. That happened so many times with me. But I eventually got my shot at the WBU, which was really a money-making title, and people said, "Oh, you're world champion," and I went, "No, I'm not a world champion." "Oh, but it's World Boxing Union." I said, "No, look, it's a money-making title to me, and I earned very good money with the WBU, and I can remember there was talk of an IBF title shot against Arthur Abraham, and I can remember the money they offered. It wasn't an official offer, but it was the money that was being talked about. And I just said, well, why am I going to do that? I'm earning far more.
Was that much of a difference? Like, was it?
Yeah, it was about the challenge. Challenge for the title, I think it was like $30,000, and I think I was earning like 45 grand for the WBU title fights, and
It's a big difference.
you know, it was a massive difference. And you know, I had a couple of good defences against good guys. I won it off Gilbert Eastman. Sorry, it was a vacant title against Gilbert Eastman, who was Howard Eastman's brother. Good little fighter himself. I think at the time he was 23 fights, 120. Just saw an opportunity. He was doing this, so I just walked him onto a right hand, and I landed the right, and it was all over in the first round. But then I defended against Ryan Rhodes, which was, I'd say, my best victory as a pro. Very good fighter, Ryan.
Yeah.
Big respect. I mean, we've known each other since we were probably 12 or 13.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, or went all through the schoolboy championships together, and then we, like when you win the NABC title, the British boys clubs, it's called the CYPs now, I think. But when you win that, you the GB squad is in Sheffield. It used to be in Crystal Palace. So when you win the Class A and the Class B, you get a week in Crystal Palace training with all the GB boys. And I can remember at the time it was like Robin Reed was there, guys like that. I can't remember, it's so long ago now. I can remember Robbie Reed being there, among others. I think they were in training for the 92. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were in training for the 92 Olympics. So it was just a little bit before then. So myself and Ryan knew each other well and always got on very, very well, pretty pally. And then it just so happened then, and as pros we both met. But Ryan had obviously been very successful before we met. You know, he'd won the British title. He was the youngest ever to win the British title outright, I think at the age of 20. And he had a world title shot, didn't he, against Jason Matthews, and two world title shots against Otis Grant. He gave a very good performance, losing on points, and obviously he got chinned by Jason Matthews in a fight that he should really have won. You know.
Yeah.
So he had his ups and downs, but then I think he won 9 fights straight, and we ended up boxing for the WBU, and. It was a very, very good fight. I think in the end I won it pretty comfortably. I think, I remember someone sending me it was a guy called Danny Winterburn, he's a boxing journalist. I think he used to write for like Boxing Monthly and that. And I can remember someone saying, "Have you got the Ryan Rhodes fight?" I said, "No, I've never seen it since." I can remember it was on ITV4, and I watched it, and we had it on the old videotape. Them days are gone. You know, the videotapes are knackered now, aren't they? So Danny Winterbaum texted me. He said, "I'm pretty sure I've got that on file somewhere," and he was true to his word, and he sent it through to me. So it was great. So I sent it to my dad, and my dad said, "I thought that fight was close on the night." He said, "But looking at it," he said, "Don't get me wrong, you didn't absolutely piss it." Like he said, "But you won it pretty comfortable." So yeah, and. We both dropped each other. I dropped him in the first with a flash knockdown, but he dropped me in the 10th, a big knockdown, like face straight into the canvas. But I got up and I recovered very quickly. So yeah.
I was going to ask you. So obviously you're friends with him from a young age, because there's been a thing in MMA at the moment over in America. I forget who it is now. I've forgotten the name of the guy, but. There's this guy who I think he's a champion, and who should be the #1 contender is his mate, and they won't fight each other because they're pals.
Right.
And I just kind of wondered if your mentality or the way you went into that fight was any different to any other fight.
No. I mean, I think what you're talking about there is guys that are like close mates.
Yeah.
With myself and Ryan, we kind of don't see each other from year to year to year, but when we see each other, we get on very well. Okay. So I guess you could say we're not mates, but friends. You know, if we lived close, possibly we could be mates. But you know, we know each other, we respect each other. I think that's been the case since we've been young kids.
Got you. So with that, you didn't treat it any differently. You were just going in there and
yeah,
it was
100%.
Did you feel like you knew him?
No.
From a ring.
I remember the press conference, and we just both spoke very respectfully about. That's the way I always was, and that's the way you'll see all my lads are. None of them shout their mouth off. None of them bull themselves up, bringing all the smoke and all this bollocks. Don't get me started. They're all respectful to each other and to their opponents and to everyone around them. The same as I was. Sometimes you get a little bit of needle in fights, of course you do. And perhaps you might say a few choice words, but you know, I think with myself and Ryan, and again with myself and all my opponents, I think we respected each other before, during, and after.
Was there anyone who gave you a bit of needle, perhaps there? Any fight sort of?
Yeah, I see the stuff that goes on now, and I think I haven't really got the head for that. You know, I think, you know, I don't get into arguments with people. I'm quite a. I'm quite a direct person anyway, so you know, I wouldn't argue with anybody.
Yeah.
If you're going to argue with someone, it's going to come to fisticuffs, really. So I'm respectful, and if someone's disrespectful, then I'm going to either walk off, which I would normally do anyway. But sometimes you're put in a situation where you can't walk off, aren't you? But no, I was very lucky. You know, I think I was very lucky, and I haven't got the head for that. But nothing. Some of the things you see now, people throwing tables and pushing and shoving each other and stuff. As I say, I haven't got the head for that.
Unfortunately, some of it seems very manufactured. Some of it, I gotta say.
It is.
The one thing which, look, I would prefer two fighters to be respectful before, during, and after, and just put on a good fight, than I would when two fighters in the build-up is as if they want to kill each other and they're throwing chairs and whatever, all the other stupid stuff we've seen over the years. But then as soon as the fight's finished, they're best pals. And I always feel a bit like...
Yeah, that's not...
Being sold down the river a bit then, isn't it?
That's not genuine needle then, is it? I don't think.
No, and it feels a bit manufactured, and then I always feel a bit like I'd watch the fights anyway, but I do think sometimes maybe if people have, you know, spent a bit of money on pay-per-view and stuff with the idea that there's a bit of needle there, and they see that, they might be like, oh, hang on, we've been sold a ticket there. But you know, it's what it is, isn't it? You obviously you spent a little bit of time with Enzo Calzaghe. How did that change come about, or how did you end up sort of going to Enzo?
Yeah, I think there's this perception that I was a Calzaghe fighter. I was very briefly, you know, towards the end of my career, because I trained in Liverpool and then in Manchester. I trained in Manchester with a very famous coach, the godfather of Manchester, Brian Hughes, and Pat Barrett as well. He was there part of the time. Obviously, Pat is very well known now, but Pat and myself are very good friends. We speak probably once, twice a week. I'm helping him. He's doing a bill in August in Cardiff, so I'm helping him along with that. So I left Brian and went to Enzo because my son was born. Didn't really want to be travelling away, leaving my son behind, and you know, spending weeks away. So moved over to Enzo for, it was only 3 fights at the end of my career.
Talk to me a bit about Brian Hughes, the man, the coach, everything.
Yeah, you know, I left Colin Moorcroft. It was a situation where, you know, I found myself in Liverpool training on my own a few times because Colin was going away with a guy called Peter Culshaw, who was WBU and WBF champion, and Peter was getting sponsored by this guy who had a villa over in Tenerife, so they'd go over there for a training camp. So I did go over there once, but then, you know, it cost a lot of money. So I can remember, like, Colin said, "Oh, I'm good at." I said, "Look, I think it was a fight after Serengo, and I was only in an 8-rounder, so I think I was getting about 10 grand. So I was like, look, I'm not spending a couple of grand on going over there."
Yeah.
I found myself repeatedly then training myself. So Frank Warren found out about it. He said, "Look, get yourself across to Brian Hughes." So I went across to Brian, and I mean, the gym was full to the brim of guys who went on to be champions, like Michael Jennings, David Barnes, Robin Reed, Matthew Hall, Scott Quigg. There's so many to mention. Rhys Roberts. There's loads of myself. Tony Dockley then turned pro. So there was about, I can remember counting like 14 champions, like British Commonwealth, myself WBU, Robbie Reed was WBC champion. So, you know, Brian would do it in a system where you all work in groups, different techniques, and not many people do it like that. In fact, it's very minimal coaches do it the way that Brian did. That way you all learn off each other, because everyone's got something to offer. I mean, I say it to the boys all the time. I say, you might have had 12 fights and you might be 12-0. A kid just joined the camp, he's an amateur. You might look at the amateur and go, I love the way he does that. He throws that right uppercut, left hook, and the way that he comes off at the, you know, you don't tell him. You don't go, oh, I love the way, I'm going to try that. Yeah. But you try it yourself. And there's things like that go on in the gym all the time. That's how people learn off each other. So Brian was a master of that. I mean, he goes back a long time, and his work for the communities in Collyhurst and Moston, he's a very respected man, and he produced many champions like Patrick Barrett, who was a fearsome puncher, you know. Pat, still in good shape now and can still throw, let me tell you. Robin Reed, you know, all those champions I just mentioned as well, British champions, European champions, Commonwealth. So yeah, you know, Brian, he died a few months ago, and yeah, he was ill for quite a while. But obviously Scott Quigg, he produced Scott Quigg. Obviously Scott went over to Joe Gallagher and won his world title under Joe Gallagher. But obviously, you know, he's with Brian from a very young age.
His education with Brian.
Indeed.
So, I'm kind of interested with that in terms of where you were training on your own. Was that causing you any problem in terms of your training or your preparation, or was it just a case of what needed to be done, and then Frank Warren was able to sort of point you towards Brian?
I mean, you know, I think what made me so, I think, independent as a pro. I mean, I can remember at the age of 19, 20, I was travelling around these gyms in Liverpool and even driving over to Manchester sometimes on my own, sparring good guys without anybody in my corner. And I think, you know, when you do that, it brings the best out in you. You know, you go to a different gym, you've got no one with you, you don't really know what to expect, whether the people are going to be respectful to you or treat you with the attitude. You've got the butterflies in your stomach, and I just always found that it brought the best out in me, and it makes you as a person. And I think, you know, that's why, you know, I've been quite successful in my life, in and out of the ring, really. And I think a lot of that is to do with those boxing, don't get me wrong, but the situations you find yourself in, the situations you have to you have to conquer and get over. Like, you know, if I stayed in the gym where I was training, didn't have no sparring, so when Colin would be away, I'd go, okay, I'll phone Steve Foster, who at the time was training Jamie Moore. I'll drive over to that gym and I'll go over there and spar. Or I'll phone such and such and see, you know, my name's Gary, I wonder if you've got any sparring over there. So I was doing that. And as I say, it made me as a person. And you know, sometimes I do it with the boys, and I'll send, I was going to send Rhys Edwards up to Pat Barrett a few weeks ago, but his fight got put back a month or so we never ended up doing it. But him going away and stopping with Pat, seeing the way that they do it, which is very similar to the way I do it anyway, but Pat's got a gym full of good pro fighters anyway, so Rhys get butterflies in the stomach, meeting different people, sparring with different people. I think it'd be great for him, and all the others, and I'll send all the others out, because, you know, Joe Gallagher, you know, all guys in London like Adam Booth and Alan Smith, and too many to name. I can send my boys to those anytime I want.
Would you only send them to guys you trust, and you trust to, you know?
Oh yeah, of course. Look, you know, the only guys I'd send them are established guys. You know, guys that I get on with well, guys that I respect, and guys that respect me back. You know, there's a lot of good trainers around, and I know, you know, most of them. So you know, it's great sending your boys to other gyms to learn, and I don't see the problem with that. Others might think, I ain't doing that. Yeah. But you know, it's two wise heads is better than one. That's what my dad always told me.
So, when you do your day-to-day coaching with the boys, do you, if you were looking from the outside, looking into yourself, or looking at yourself training the boys and the boys training and all that, do you think you'd see bits of Brian and Pat within the way you do
Colin
things?
Moorcroft, and my old amateur coach Tony Williams, my dad,
Bit of everyone.
Enzo, my old coach. I had a few coaches when I turned pro, like were in and out of the gym. Georgie Schofield, who always does. He does the house corner on the Liverpool Bills. Love George. Georgie Schofield, Kenny Willis, Colin Moorcroft, then Brian Hughes, Pat Barrett, Enzo, and then, as I say, my amateur coach Tony Williams as well. So yeah, there's bits of everything. And the things that they say to you, every one of these coaches has educated me in some way for the good. So you put that in there, and you save it for the right situation. And you don't necessarily save it for the right situation. It just comes out sometimes. You see an opportunity, you see something that someone's doing. You're trying to explain it. The hardest thing for me as a coach is I'm trying to get them to do something, but sometimes it's the way that you deliver it, and then you say a completely different way, and they start doing it. So they just didn't really take in the first instruction, but the second instruction they did. They both mean exactly the same thing. You're just delivering it in a different way. So when I'm delivering these things, sometimes you will see little bits from, like I just said, all the guys I mentioned. There'll be all of those are locked away in there.
Funny enough, I said to my 17-year-old the other day, I said it to him the other day, but I'd also said it to him when he was younger, when he was about 14, I think. But I think he listened more now. Is through your life you meet all these different people. So he was doing a bit of football. He's done a bit of football academy training and stuff, and he was been privileged enough to coach, be coached by some ex-players and stuff like that. But all those people, different people you train with from different teams and different coaches, whatever it may be, it's knowledge, isn't it? You can learn something from everyone, even people who are not ex-players and stuff like that. You can learn things from people, teachers, coaches, whatever it may be, and you can take them into later life, and you might not even realise it, like you just said at the time, but a situation may present itself further down the line where you're able to use that knowledge. And I think I think it's definitely something which I've tried to take into my life as I've got older. Like, I'm lucky I get to speak to all types of people doing this. And I feel like I learn something all the time.
Yeah, of course you will, because the people you're sitting down with got their own good experiences, and you will learn, won't you?
Absolutely, and it's one of them things, isn't it, as well, is everyone's been through different things in life and experienced different ups and downs and stuff, of course, and different ways to deal with things.
Hopefully more ups and downs, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So I asked you what the lowest point of your career is. What about highest point?
I'll surprise you.
Okay.
Nothing as a pro, but I can remember in the amateurs, I've won 3 straight Welsh schools titles. We was talking about this earlier in the gym. Now, when in the amateurs, the first Welsh title you win as a junior, it's 11 to 12. Nothing follows. But when you win the Junior A title, then it's all changed now. They're all called different things, but it was the Welsh Schools Amateur Boxing Association Championship. So Junior A, if you win the Welsh title, you go through to the quarters of the national championship, which everyone in Wales calls the British, but it's not the British. It's called the national championship. So it's just in England, and then Wales get an entry. So you'll fight in the quarters. You'll fight the Midlands champion. If you get through the quarters, you'll fight the winner out of the northeast and the northwest. And then if you get through the semis, then the final will be like London and the south and the home counties, the guy that's come through that area. Right, so I lost in the no, I didn't. I lost in the semi-final in Junior A, and then I lost in the quarter-final to the same guy I beat the year before in the Junior B. So I ended up being selected that year, which was 1991, after losing in the British. So I lost in the British against Craig Vasey, and then I fought him then, Wales versus England, and I beat him on points. Then I got selected for the Golden Gloves. Now, I was only about 2 years old, 3 years old. Brilliant competition, sponsored by the Daily Star Golden Gloves. So, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, England. The King of Britain if you win it. Yeah. So I beat the English boy in the semis, knocked him out in the first, dropped them twice. Now I was the youngest, one of the youngest, so I was end of November. This calendar year competition. So the two guys I fought were a year older than me in school. So I've knocked out Luke Prowse in the first, and then I fought a guy in the final called Tony Dunn. Now we found out that like I think I'd had 15 fights. I'd had 15 fights and I'd lost 5. Tony Dunn had 78, 173. But I was shitting myself. Don't get me wrong, but I could see he was short and squat like a little bull. You could see he was really strong. And I've come out in the first round, thrown a couple of jabs, threw a lazy jab. He's hit me with a right hand over the top, but I always had a good chin. Took it well, head snapped back. Anyway, I've lost the first round, but then I've used my boxing ability, won the second and won the third round. I won it on a 5-0 unanimous decision. The joy I felt winning that Golden Gloves title beats anything that I ever did in my life. I mean, apart from my children being born, you know, that was the most joyous I've ever been. Nothing beat it, you know.
It's interesting that, isn't it? Because I suppose people would always assume, asking that question, that you'd say something within your, you know, within your professional career.
Yeah, I mean, I won European Youth Gold in 2 years later, 2 years after that, and you know, I beat the Italian in Italy, knocked him out in the first round. But even that, you know, I was happy.
Yeah.
But the joy that came out of me, I was in tears, you know. And I can remember Bradley Price's brother Byron. I saw him about 6 months later, and he said, "You lost in the Golden Gloves final, didn't you?" I went, "No." He went, "Oh, but he said you were in tears." I said, "Yeah, they were tears of joy." So he thought, because I was crying my eyes out, he thought I'd lost, but I was so happy, you know. That, so nothing ever beat that for me, to be honest. You know, apart from as I say, my children being born. I think that's the most joyous moment of my life.
It's interesting. Children change the game, don't they? They just, for me anyway, and I find when I speak to people, like, when you have kids, it just changes your whole outlook on life and stuff. And I think just the way you view things changes in that instant that they're born. Did you find that you had like, obviously you said you moved sort of, or you stopped travelling, not moved back down here, but you stopped travelling to train. Was there a change in your mindset, do you think, when you...
Once my son was born?
Yeah, your first...
Not at first, I don't think. Obviously, you grow up, don't you? You instantly grow up when you're a father. But I mean, you know, I think of the way that I think now, and I'm 45 now, but the way I used to think 10 years ago, I've grown up, it's almost like I've grown up 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, not instantly, but I mean, I know what you're saying. You know, your outlook completely changes when you've got kids. You know, you've got a lot more responsibility, haven't you? And things, you know, shit just got real.
Yeah,
type of thing, you know, that old saying. But you know, for me, watching the people my children are growing into, you know, I mean, I'm very lucky with my children. You know,
yeah, so
very, very lucky. And he's just finished his GCSEs now. Played district rugby last year. He benched 100 kilo. Started benching about 100 kilo about 2 weeks ago. For a 15-year-old boy, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You know, and
my middle son's just getting, well, the last year or so he's been doing like weights and stuff. He loves it. And out of the three of them, he's the one who was so not athletic and no sweet. Didn't want to play football when he was younger. Didn't want to play rugby. Was not interested in sport
he loves
at all.
It now, right?
And then all of a sudden,
just
found his thing and his weights, and he likes getting big, and he likes the camaraderie of going to the gym and stuff.
Oh, it's great, and it's something, you know, it's great.
Finding
my children are old-fashioned, right? So my son doesn't touch PlayStation, shit like that. Doesn't touch that. My daughter just reads copious amounts of books.
That's such a good thing, though, isn't it?
She's athletics, she's gymnastics, trampoline, and proper daddy's girl as well, right? It's just unbelievable. It's just makes me feel on top of the world, you know. She's 10, my boy's 15. Just very lucky with them, and just growing, seeing a person, the people that they're growing up to be, just shows myself, and you know, the job that myself and my wife have done with them, it can't be too bad, can it?
No.
So you know, it's I just hope that they make my parents proud as well, proud of me, the people they've grown into be. So, yeah.
If I
Have you got a box of tissues?
Yeah. If I got, I was going to say, if I got your kids in here and asked them what they thought of what sort of dad you were, what do you reckon they would say?
I hope they'd say that he was always fair with us. You know, he did the best he could for us, and you know, we were constantly running them around every night, going to their sports and doing this and doing that. So no, I'd like to think that you know, I was fair and I'd done the best I can for them.
Okay, and let's twist that question. If I got your fighters in you and said, "Tell me about Gary Lockett," what do you reckon they would say?
Apart from there's only two that I've ever worked with that I don't get on with anymore. They can't say anything. I've always been fair. I've always been fair, especially, you know, with money and things like that, and the opportunities that I get them. I mean, some of these guys have got a different manager. I manage them. I get them all the opportunities. So
if some fighters, they have a coach and a manager, do they?
Every single fighter's got to have a manager. Every single fighter. So I manage most of my guys, but then there's 3 or 4 of them got a separate manager. But you know, I get on with the manager. Yeah. But like all the opportunities they get on bigger bills is not from that manager, it's from me. So really, I'm
your
manager.
Manager, yeah.
And that manager has openly said, "Well, I'm your manager on paper, but really Gary's going to be managing you."
Yeah.
So it's, you know, I've been a manager for, I think I was a coach first, but I think I had my manager's license only about a year later. I think now it's different because you've got to have, I think you've got to be a coach. I'm not 100% on this. I think you've got to be a coach for about 3 years before you get your manager's license. Okay. It was different back then. So I had very early, I had the experience of being a manager and dealing with promoters and dealing with different people and knowing the rules and the regulations. So it's good. I mean, the best thing, if you're a manager and if you've got a fighter good enough that you can put them with a big promoter, really you don't have to do a lot, because if they're with a big promoter, that promoter and that company really does everything. You're just there in the background to see that everything is, your fight is there, is being treated by these people, because you're the one that has to negotiate for him and what have you. But it's, you know, the guys that, like the GB squad guys and the guys that are fancied by the bigger promoters like Hearn, Boxer, Warren, Wasserman Boxing, guys like that, if you can put your fighter straight with them, then number one, it's brilliant for your fighter because they haven't got the hassle of selling tickets to try and earn money. And number two, as I say, they do all the work for them. They even give them lots of publicity and stuff like that, which is something that then they don't have to worry about. But yes, yeah, I think if you can manage and you can train your fighters, then it's a major advantage. But as a manager, if you've got no contacts, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Luckily enough for me, I've dealt with these guys for years, so I know all the guys, but I'm not unrealistic enough to go to these guys and say, "I got this kid here, he's mustard," and then the kid boxes and they go, "Yeah, really?" So you've got to know how good your kid is before you put your neck on the chopping block. So, you know, and that can obviously ruin your reputation, because if you put a kid forward, so I said to Eddie, "Look, Eddie, this kid's mustard. Nearly got into the GB squad, but just give him a chance." And Eddie looks at him and goes, "Yeah, really? That's my reputation." He goes, "Well, yeah, Gary must be losing his marbles. Next time he asks, I ain't gonna." Do you understand?
Yeah,
so
100%.
It's the same in all sports and all walks of life, I suppose, isn't it? When you vouch for someone and they don't really prove themselves, then it's your reputation.
Comes back on you, doesn't it? So, how difficult is it to judge? Say you've got a fighter, you know, and you train with these guys every day, so you're going to be close to them. You know, I know you're their coach, their manager, and stuff, but you are going to be close to them. How difficult is it to weigh up wanting to get them opportunities versus are they ready for that opportunity?
You just know. You know when they're ready. See the way they spar, see the way they fight, see the attitude they got. You know, some of them are just chomping at the bit. Some of them maybe get opportunities where they don't really deserve them. That's a bit of a shame. I've had a few experiences like that as well. Whereas you've got the kid who isn't really putting the dedication in, but is more talented than the rest. He's getting more opportunities than the rest. It's hard for those fighters that are not getting the opportunities, and it's hard for me because I hope those fighters don't resent me because of that.
Yeah.
But
yeah. It's difficult, that, isn't it?
It's very difficult. You know, you've got to be many. You've got to wear many hats as a manager, as a coach. Yeah, there's plenty. I always find time.
It's unreal. I just think you must be constantly either training or on the phone.
Yeah, everyone's different as well, aren't they? You know, all the fighters are different. You've got to treat them all in different ways. You know, I got a kid in the gym who's a hypochondriac. I told him, I said, look, I don't want to hear it. You know, if I can't spar because I said, well, look, if you got a busted hand and you can't spar, if you got, you know, that on you, and he's always going to spar. He's just having a little whinge, I think he was. And every time, oh, my back, stretch. I'm like, I don't care. Just get on with it. You know, you've got some guys who are just, like Jenkins, for instance, absolutely bonkers. Just in a good way. It's just an incredible person, just makes everyone laugh. The swearing is just ridiculous, you know, every other word. And just everyone, people will come down. I had Robbie Davis Jr. and his trainer come down, and I can't say the word he was saying because it's. And I said to Joe Tonks it was, and I said, "Did you understand the word of that?" He said, "Well, the only word I could understand was C-U-N-T." Yeah. So I can't understand anything else.
But then those characters are good for the morale of everyone, aren't they?
Yeah, you know, they're all different. They've all got different personalities, as in Joe Gallagher's gym, as in Tony Borg's gym, as in Adam Booth's gym. You know, you've got some brilliant characters, and they all bounce off each other, don't they? And that's what makes them all, you know, good gyms and good places to be.
Do you know, we had Graham Jones in, right? He's now one of the England coaches with Southgate and that in the football. And I had him on the football podcast before, and we talked about like back in the day when like Andy was playing in the 90s, 80s, whatever. It was the managers and the coaches was very much everyone just do as you're told. They weren't really treated as individuals and stuff like that. But Graham Jones was saying to us about the importance of, if you've got 11 people or 16 people, say, and you got they're young people as well, like they've all got different personalities. They can all learn differently. They all might hear verbal cues or whatever, or verbal instructions differently. Like sometimes you need to manage them individually a bit. Like, how difficult is it to manage and coach all those different personalities in like a group environment?
For me, it's not at all, because number one, they've all got good morals and they've all got good attitudes. There's no arseholes. And if they were arseholes, they wouldn't be there. It's as simple as that. I got rid of a couple of arseholes in the past. Yeah, definitely. I can see it early. It takes a couple of sessions.
Is that bad attitude or?
Bad attitude, arrogant, not respectful to other people. Perhaps got that sneer, that look on their face. I tell you what, don't get me started. But no, they're all good. You know, I'm sure some of them have got their good points and they're bad. They've all got their good points and their bad points. But you know, I think in general, all the boys they're just all nice kids. Most kids are in boxing. I mean, you meet some fantastic people in boxing. I'd say 95% of people in boxing are good kids, good respectful kids. So, but I want to have that because it only takes one bad egg.
Yeah, it can spread quite quickly.
And a couple in the past. I soon put that, smooth that over. No, all's good. As I say, you know, if you don't have to always agree, you can't treat people all the same. But I think if you treat people with a level of respect, you know, it's like I say, if you give me 100%, you're going to get it back, because I'm going to give you 100%, so I certainly expect it back. And if you're not going to give me that, then you're in the wrong place. Go somewhere else. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, 100%. As we kind of wrap up now, talk to me about Joe Cordina's performance in that world title fight, because that was a big fight for him. Another Welsh world champion. We mentioned earlier about the MMA knockouts. You don't always see, or you certainly don't see it regularly, the kind of one punch, two punch knockout in boxing. Maybe as much as you used to. Maybe we used to see it a bit more back in the day. It was certainly an impressive finish. But I actually thought his opponent, I thought he looked pretty good in the first round.
Yeah, he did. I mean, we've gone. I approached Ed of Sport for BBC. Said, look, no one's done anything, because I do quite a bit of media for BBC and what have you. So I said, no one's done anything on Cordina. We got something planned. I said, yeah, but when are you going to do it? I just got to get. I said, right, listen, let me stop you. I said, he's a local boy to where we are. I said, I know him pretty well by now. Then why don't I ask him a few questions? So I'll give you the content. So, how's training camp gone?
Yeah.
What do you think of your opponent? What will it feel like to be well? Questions I just would never ask, because they're
just generic questions, isn't they?
Yeah. I'll ask him my own questions. He'll open up to me a little bit more because we know each other. Sounds great. Let me speak to someone. Of course, I spoke to Cordina about it, and he said, "Yeah, I'll do that." He said, "I like that." No answer for a week. Go back. Someone's going to ring you. Blah blah. Long story short. Anyway, one of the guys I trained, he's a producer for the BBC. And I said to him about it. He said, well, I'll go in and I'll see such and such, and I'll say, look, let me do it, I'll produce it, I'll do this, I'll do that. So 12:30 he's phoned me, he said, look, we got a green light to do it. So I phoned Joe then, when you back, blah 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 blah. So long story short, I've gone around the houses a little bit, haven't I? We did an interview, and it was really good. It was really good, and if anybody's listened to the interview, you'll hear, I call it like the man behind the boxer, and you get to know what a genuine person Joe is. Nice kid who does a lot for the community, and it was just a very respectful fella. And you see some of these guys, they get to a certain status, and their attitude changes. That ain't going to happen with him. He's still going to be coming in, our gym, sparring with I have nothing to do with the amateurs, but he goes in there once in a blue moon and he spars every single kid, and he poses for photos for every single person, and he talks to every single person. And I think that's a quality that is probably rare these days. And Joe's a good lad, a real good lad, a man I respect, and to see that was just amazing. And I mean, they did an interview with me then, BBC, 6:30 in the morning, on a Sunday morning, on Monday morning. Got me out of bed with a cup of coffee, and I made a statement on there, and the guy went, "Oh, hang on, that's a big statement." I said, "It's the best fight-ending punch in Welsh boxing history." And he said, "That's controversial." I said, "Well, name me another. Name me one better." And I said it on Facebook, and a couple of people was like, "Oh, what about Craig Woodruff against such and such?" I went, mate,
at that level,
we're not talking at that level. What about Jason Cook against the Italian guy, the European side? Good shout, but I'm not talking at the European level. I'm talking about the best fight-ending punch. That doesn't mean in a four-rounder in Newport Centre. It means, so you get the drift what I'm saying. Yeah. I just think, obviously, I'm not saying it's the biggest win. I mean, Calzaghe, Calzaghe Hopkins, Calzaghe Lacey, Calzaghe Kessler, massive wins. I'm sure there's many, many more. What I'm saying is, it's the best fight-ending punch. But people don't listen sometimes. They just what about best fight-ending punch in Welsh boxing history? I can't think of a better one.
No, and it's.
It's not just. It wasn't just a close your eyes, poke your tongue out, big hook, swing for the rafters. It was a technical. It was a technical punch, which was It was a kind of feint to the body, turned into a right hand to the head, which I can only describe as if I was going to do it, it would have to be in two movements. It would have to be feint, step, bang. But he did it with one. He went, what, bang. He did step through with his right. But the precision, the speed, the timing was just incredible. I don't think, I mean, in world boxing, not just in Welsh boxing, I don't think you'll see a better punch all year at least.
No.
So, you know, absolutely fantastic. And let's be fair, this is a guy, Ogawa, who's had form going away and winning. He won in Vegas, he won in Madison Square Garden. He was supposed to be the puncher in the fight. And what did we know? What did we know? Yeah. We didn't know anything, did we? It's, you know, I just think, you know, when you're against a puncher, I think Joe's timing and precision beat Ogawa's power, didn't it? And it made him look like the puncher in the fight. So I think he's been busy on social media since, Joe. I think he's absolutely loving it, and bloody, you know, quite rightly so. What a fantastic victory! But it couldn't, honestly, you know, you hear this saying said so many times, you know, it couldn't happen to a more deserving person. But you know, it couldn't, because outside of Wales, he probably wasn't fancied for the fight.
No.
I mean, I know the ability that he's got, but he had a couple of, not a couple, I think he had the one stuttering performance where he looked a little bit flat, and I think that was only 2 or 3 fights before that. And you know, Ogawa had beaten the better quality of opponents. So, but Joe certainly, he proved that he's at that level, and he's going to be there to stay for a while, I think.
Absolutely. I've been trying to get him in here for ages, and it looked like it was going to happen at one point, and then obviously he had a world title fight and stuff. So I'm still trying, but I'm hoping to get him in, because I think even more so now. But I wanted to get him in anyway, because I think he's everyone who I've spoken to, and obviously I've spoken to a few different people now who know him. They say he's just a phenomenal guy, like just a really good guy. And I know he does a lot within the community and stuff for Cardiff and that.
Real down to earth.
Oh, look at that time. Oh, look at that perfectly. Gary, as ever, it's been a real pleasure. I've just really enjoyed like sitting here and just talking and chatting.
Problem.
It's been an absolute
It's not a
pleasure.
question and answer, is it? It's a conversation, and that's the way it should be.
It's much better that way, isn't it? It's like, rather than me just going question. Obviously, there's a couple of things I want to ask you and stuff, but ultimately, it's just good to have a chat.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Indeed. Guys, subscribe, like, all the good stuff. And of course, check out Gary Lockett's social media if you wish. I'm sure you will.